and on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt. Hope you're having yourselves a terrific morning this morning and making the most of your day. Hopefully you're coming off of a fantastic weekend, and hopefully you've had some fun out there. Enjoyed the warm weather, the beautiful weather. I hope you're having nice weather wherever you are. I know that central and upstate New York, we've been spoiled here these last few days. My little sis, Franny's graduation was absolutely beautiful, so I want to shout out God for the nice weather on that one and much appreciation. So happy to be here with you inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. Always a great time to be hanging out here inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. You know, Cafe Kubal is here with you in our community, and as you watch and listen to Wake Up Call every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time on YouTube.com, Facebook.com, and MixLR.com, all /WakeUpCallDT, as well as on WakeUpCallDT.com and on Facebook.com /LiveNowDT. You can be hanging out with us right here inside of these Cafe Kubal studios all throughout the week. And, of course, Cafe Kubal on 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, New York, as well as there on 3501 James Street and 324 West Water Street, as well as 401 South Salina Street in Syracuse, New York. And you can find them on the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road at Sweetheart Corners in their drive-through location, which is right there in North Syracuse. So make sure you head out there today and let them know that Wake Up Call sent you, and support local today, folks. It is imperative that we support local in every way, shape, or form that we possibly can. So I appreciate all of you that are supporting local and are going out there and going the extra mile to help out Central and Upstate New York. So big thanks to that. You know that our studios have been decked out in a very special way, so we have some really cool things here in the studio. We have our 315. I'm going to bring it over to you so you can see it a little bit closer. The 315 Home Sweet Home sign. 315 is my home. I came back here to start my business 10 years ago. I think we're 9 days away from our 10-year anniversary. So came back here to start the broadcast and not to start the broadcast. I came back here to start my company. So the 315 sign, very meaningful to me. And of course, we have our Syracuse 315 with the dome in it pillow and the Cuse Home Sweet Home pillow, as well as this fantastic fancy here. We have our Witty Wicks candle that's smelling ever so beautiful. So all of these are here in studio because Witty Wicks is a proud new partner of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. So we are definitely enjoying our Witty Wicks life and having some fun with them here today. So we thank you for being here inside of the Cafe Kubal studios, where sports truly meets that thing called life. So thank you for being here with us, hanging out with us every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. With that being said, we have a lot of great stuff coming up this week, a lot of fantastic guests, a lot of great conversations. We're definitely going to be talking about realignment. We're also going to be covering what's going on with Syracuse recruiting. We'll get into some more fantasy football. We'll get into baseball with Papa Joe. We'll have the ingredients to success, proudly presented by Avicoli's in Liverpool. That's on Tuesday around 10:50 a.m. Eastern Time. So be at the end of the show tomorrow. And of course, we have Papa Joe's segment Thursday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And of course, on Friday, we will have our Annoying Moment of the Week presented by Carvel DeWitt. We will have, beyond that, we'll have our lead, Learn, Evolve, Ad-Lib, and Deliver, brought to you by Chick-fil-A Cicero and Chick-fil-A Clay. And of course, we will also have our top dog of the week announced by Canine Camp Dog Daycare and Canine Campground Dog Boarding. So a lot of good stuff coming up here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life, and we look forward to having that. We'll also have our Pacer Pride special a couple days early with Marywood University, so make sure you stay tuned for that. We appreciate you all for being a part of the show, and definitely thank you for being on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora with us on wakeupcalldt.com 24/7, and of course throughout the week sharing your time with us. We appreciate it so very much. So thank you for being a part of it, and a big shout out to all of you that appreciate and understand where sports meets life. So much love, many thanks, and nothing but appreciation to each and every single one of you. So I hope you're having a fantastic morning this morning. We're going to make it better if it's not great, and if it is great, we're going to keep it rocking and rolling. So good morning and happy Monday to each and every single one of you out there. And we'll have today inside of the broadcast on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. We're going to be joined first and foremost by Mr. Alex Dodd inside of MonPazPopcorn.com's What's Poppin'. Alex Dodd's going to join us first here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Alex coming to us after many times he's been on the show, and now he is working up in South Dakota. So a former Clemson reporter who's working for Rapid City Journal in Rapid City, South Dakota, will be joining us today to speak on realignment, to speak on Clemson, the future of the ACC, and more. And then after we have Alex Dodd here in the first hour with us coming up at around 9:15 a.m. Eastern Time, we'll be joined by Jayden Sellers. Jayden Sellers will be joining us at 10:15 a.m. Eastern Time as the 2025 wide receiver out of South Florence High School in Florence, South Carolina. He'll be joining us here today to speak on his recruitment and how Syracuse has already offered him in the incoming class for freshmen of 2025, 3 years away. Syracuse has already offered him, and if his last name looks familiar, it's because it is. Lanorris Sellers is committed to Syracuse, 2023 quarterback, and Jayden Sellers, his younger brother, now has an offer from Syracuse. So we could see Sellers to Sellers, and we got to see that here recently, and we'll see it one more time this season for South Florence as the Sellers brothers get out there and look to have that tandem guide them toward a state title in South Carolina, as Lanorris Sellers is their starting quarterback and their starting wide receiver there, Jayden Sellers. So very excited to see what they can do together this season. And we'll be talking with Jayden for the first time ever in just a little bit, around 10:15 a.m. Eastern Time. So for all of you that have joined us here on Wake Up Call, welcome. We appreciate it, and we thank you so much for being a part of the show. So that's inside of MonPazPopcorn.com's What's Poppin'. We got a few minutes before we get jumping here on everything with conference realignment. Well, a lot of things are coming up here, folks, and, the thought that, there's stuff that I've said here on the show. I've made mention of the fact that I thought the SEC, which has already gotten to 16, and now the Big Ten will be at 16, but with the SEC being at 16, I said that I really felt like they were going to, especially if they get to 20, they're going to break away and form their own model, their own piece, and that they would just break away completely from everybody, and they would form their own playoff and have their own league. And, I talked with Joe Fields about that, who is inside of the SEC at Texas A&M. And, and he said that's not out of the realm of possibility. It's not like that couldn't have, potentially already been spoken about. So, interesting world that we're living in right now is now people are talking about the SEC breaking away and forming its own thing. And, now the fact that maybe the Big Ten would try to join them or figure out something where their champions could play each other, that could be something, could actually, I think that, that could be a potential model here. But the Big Ten, the Pac-12, and the ACC formed an alliance recently here, and they formed that alliance shortly after the SEC expanded to gain Oklahoma and Texas, essentially cutting off the head of the Big 12. So that, to me, was no mistake when that happened, that the joint alliance, and they said, oh, we're here to spread information, we're here to get to know each other, he's a friend from work, so to speak. But, it's a ridiculousness of, to me it was ridiculous that they said, oh, this is for the sharing of information, and this is for scheduling opportunities. You can schedule with the Big Ten and the ACC have scheduled without the joint alliance, and they've done that for years. So you don't need that to schedule, so that's obviously, to me, bogus. You don't need it to share information, because to me that's bogus, unless you're sharing legal information. But why would you be sharing legal information unless you're trying to work something out? So I think and I said this before on the show, but I think that, the joint alliance was formed in retaliation to, to the SEC to be prepared for what the SEC could do next. And I think it was the conference's way of staying together. And I think they left the Big 12 out of it because I think that potentially they thought the Big 12 was going to die. So, you think about it. The SEC grows, the Big 10, the Pac-12, and the ACC form a joint alliance, and then the Big 12 is just sitting there. So, to me, it looks pretty clear. I think the three conferences did it to respond to the SEC getting bigger. I think they did it in order to stay relevant and stay together. And beyond that, they left the Big 12 out, which I think says something to the Big 12 that the Big 12 needs to remember, is that they thought that maybe they didn't need you. And now the Big 12 is in a place where they could grow and not need the ACC or the Pac-12. So it's just jockeying back and forth. It's playing a chess game, right? And you think the game is over, and then somebody hits you with a nice move. And, to me, I played checkers growing up, not chess. And so for me, when I look at like checkers, right, somebody would think they had me, and then I triple jump you and have you king me. And that's what I think we're seeing right now with the Big 12. If the Big 12 acts, right, they're kind of feels like they're sitting right now, and maybe they're looking for some right stuff. Maybe they're trying to clear up some things. Maybe they're trying to make some sense of it all, before they make this jump and make this move, because it seemed like it was going to happen. Now it's quiet. Now if nothing happens with the Big 12, it's almost like a letdown to some people because they've been in the news for over a week. But, this conference realignment thing has really just been about jockeying back and forth and seeing who's got the big cojones and who's going to make that move, right? Who's going to take from who, and how are they going to take, and what are they going to take, and how many are they going to take? So, this is
when I was younger.
This is going to be a weird world, I think, and it definitely has already set out to be that. And so we're going to talk with Alex Dodd about it, but it's not stuff that we haven't spoken about already here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. As I told you before, this is stuff that I had in my mind about the SEC, about the Joint Alliance, about the Big 12. I wrote months ago how the Big 12 could have been eaten, and they weren't. And now the Big 12 could be the ones eating. So, you didn't kill the Big 12 when you could, and now the Big 12 might end up coming back and killing you. So it's like watching a movie unfold, except for it's real life, and it's affecting real people, and it's affecting real conferences. And will these conferences survive? At one time a few weeks ago, the Pac-12 could laugh at the American or laugh at the Sun Belt and say, we're better than you, we're bigger than you, we don't need you type of thing. And now the American and the Sun Belt are saying, we have 14, you have 10, and you're in a lot of trouble right now, and you do need us. So, I've talked about the Mountain West bonding with the Pac-12 and the remaining members, and that can make some sense. So, we'll make sense of this all as we move forward, and we'll have Alex Dodd here to give his thoughts and, his opinion on everything that we have going on in realignment. But this is a conversation that we're going to continue to have, and I love having it. So, welcome to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. We appreciate you being here. We'll take a step aside for a quick, fast break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Alex Dodd, former Clemson reporter and currently writing for the Rapid City Journal in Rapid City, South Dakota. He'll be joining us right after this fast break on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvelite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvalanche, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvelite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
Cafe Cabal offers same-day local delivery of our products, offering no delivery charge for Onondaga County. Shop cafecabal.com for fresh roasted coffee beans, cold brew, travel mugs, and all your essential Cafe Cabal needs. Cafe Cabal, coffee for the soul.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant. Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios, hanging out with you where sports meets that thing called life. And happy to be here. 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, 401 South Salina Street, all in Syracuse, New York, 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, New York, and of course in their drive-through location on the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road at Sweetheart Corners in North Syracuse. So make sure you head out to Cafe Kubal today. Let them know the Wake Up Call sent you, and definitely fill your cup up right by supporting local, supporting CNY. Matt Goddard and his team. Matt started here making coffee in his parents' basement. That's how he started everything. He was in the basement just creating and trying to take this passion and turn it into something special. And now it's turned into multiple locations. It's turned into a website at cafekubal.com where you can order your coffee and have it sent to you. It's absolutely incredible what you can do when you have a dream and a cup. So big ups to Matt Goddard and the team at Cafe Kubal. Make sure you support them today. So definitely appreciate everything they have done and much appreciation for that. So thank you for being a part of our community, and thank you for choosing us, Matt, and to build here and to create here. Very, very much am thankful for that. So with that being said, Alex Dodd's going to join us in just a few moments here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, and I definitely can't wait to have him here on the show with us. So definitely looking forward to it. Very happy to have him here on the broadcast, and we'll take the time here to let you know that you could search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on Stitcher, Spotify, as well as TuneIn, iHeart Radio, and Podbean. You can also find us on iTunes and Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and MixLR, and on Amazon Music and Audible. All you have to do on any one of these outlets is search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, or one word, Wake Up Call DT. So however you're connecting with the show, thank you so much for doing it, and we definitely appreciate you for being a part of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets that thing called life. It's always an honor to have you here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. So, with that being said, as we were talking about realignment here before the break and getting into that and what's been going on here with realignment, you know, it's an open doorway right now, and things could be changing pretty rapidly. They could change in an instant. And, I mean, they kind of change they change really, really quick, and now here we are sitting here, and there's been kind of a holding pattern for realignment. So, you know, the Big 12 has their media days coming up here soon. The ACC has theirs. I'll be down at the ACC's media days, the virtual media days for the American Athletic. I'll be a part of those as well. So I know that we're going to be busy here within the next couple of weeks as to what's actually going down here, and I'm excited to see how it's all going to shape out to be. And will the Big 12 make a decision before their media days? It would make sense for them to do so, But if they do not, then, does that kind of engulf Media Day? I think it does. So with that being said, to continue the conversation on realignment, get his thoughts on Clemson after being so close with them over these past few years, as well as the ACC. That's how we met. We met at ACC kickoff. So Alex Dodd here with us, former Clemson reporter, working for Rapid City Journal in Rapid City, South Dakota. And Mr. Dodd, how we doing today?
Doing great, Dan. It's always good to be on the show.
Yeah, happy to have you here, man, and happy to have you be a part of it. First and foremost, congratulations on becoming a Mr. Dodd, as you've gotten married now, so congratulations on that.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. It has been an eventful few weeks in the Dodd household.
Yeah, so bring me into South Dakota. I've never been up there. I've obviously covered conferences that have South Dakota and South Dakota State within it. We've had a conversation here recently here in our Commissioner Central, so I get the opportunity to speak about them and to speak about, obviously success of football in the Dakotas and whatnot, but what's life like in Rapid City?
It is a lot slower. The state is very flat except for the part that I live in. I'm in Rapid City in the Black Hills, so I mean it's gorgeous here. I mean, I'm 30 minutes from Mount Rushmore, 30 minutes from Crazy Horse. All the great things about the Black Hills, the Badlands are right up the road from me. But I love it here, man. It's a beautiful area. The people are great. Mostly doing high school sports here, but it's a great spot, and so far so good. It's a lot better in the summer than it is the winter, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if anybody can rival Syracuse, but I'm sure South Dakota can. So,
It's the wind here that gets you.
Yeah. So speaking of the wind, I mean, the winds of conference realignment have been blown like crazy. This has been a very eventful 2022. Oklahoma and Texas making their decision to jump ship and to go to the SEC. The SEC cutting off the head of the Big 12. Let's start there, because the SEC didn't take from the Big 12. The SEC took the identity of the Big 12. They took the head off of the conference, left the conference there. The body that was left was right for the taking. I wrote an article about how the American, the Pac-12, the ACC, and the Big 10 could have taken the rest, and they didn't. And the Big 12 somehow was able to survive this attack on them. What is your take on the SEC not just saying, you know what, we're going to take a few more from one of these conferences, but that they went to the Big 12 and said, we're going to take your identifiers from your conference?
Well, I mean, the SEC was very deliberate with its moves, is the way that I would describe it. I mean, taking from the Big 12 is not something that's new for the SEC. Texas A&M and Missouri were not too long ago. But Oklahoma and Texas is a lot different story than taking the Aggies and the Tigers from the Big 12. I mean, you took the moneymakers, you took the people, like you said, who are the identity of the Big 12. And really, I mean, the conference did survive, but not in the same form that it was before, and it never will be. I mean, Oklahoma State's had some good years recently. Baylor has been competitive in recent years. So is TCU. But when you take historical college football blue bloods and powerhouses like Oklahoma and Texas, I mean, really, they left the Big 12 on life support. And if the Big 12 does end up kind of raiding the Pac-12 now, it may generate a little bit more revenue, but it's going to be nothing like it was before.
Yeah, and the SEC took the school that, besides the SEC having 50% of the college football playoff, Oklahoma's been there a bunch of times. Now, here's the thing that I find ironic and crazy, and I would love to know what Lincoln Riley is feeling right now. He takes this, once Oklahoma says, you know what, we're going to go to the SEC in the future, Lincoln Riley was like, you know what, I think it's my time to go. And he leaves and he goes to USC. Now, the Pac-12 is wide open, and I call it the WAC-12. I have for a long time, because they're not relevant in college football, and they really haven't been relevant in basketball recently. So here we are with the WAC-12 trying to figure things out, and Lincoln Riley goes over there to USC and says, I got open season. right? I have nobody here to threaten me. Stanford's not going to threaten me. Oregon always finds a way to lose. Utah does enough, but not enough to get there. They do something toward the end of the season. There's a lot of irrelevancy here in the Pac-12, so I'm going to come here to a historic program that sends guys to the NFL, and I'm going to build this thing back up. Then he finds out he's going to the Big Ten. If you're Lincoln Riley, what are your thoughts right now to go, I just ran away from this giant mega conference, and now I somehow have slipped into another one?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're Lincoln Riley, it's just, it's just the nature of the beast now. I mean, you can't stop, a rolling stone on a hill. I mean, that's kind of the thought behind it there. I mean, Lincoln Riley, he's a lot better to be in the Big Ten than to be in the SEC if you're in Lincoln Riley's shoes. I mean, you're dealing with Ohio State and maybe Michigan. I mean, if Michigan decides to have a year, I mean, we saw what they did in the college football playoff. But it is a lot better situation than being in the SEC, especially taking Texas with you, and who knows what else is going to happen in the near future with that. But probably a better move than being there. But I'm telling you, I'm not gonna. It probably wouldn't be very fun to be playing a 9 a.m. game in Rutgers in October, local time if you're Lincoln Riley from Southern California.
Yeah, and that's the thing, too, is the travel side of things, right? Because a lot of people are thinking about football, but let's speak to that here with Alex Dodd this morning on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. The reality to me that, are you going to have volleyball do this? Are you going to have field hockey? Are you going to have your soccer team and whatnot? I mean, these Olympic sports having to go 2,300 miles. Are you going to send them on a bus? I mean, let's look to that side of it because, obviously college football, we talk about it all the time, rules the day, right? And they do what they want to do and how they want to do it, and decisions are made for them. But what about everybody else? What about all the other sports? What about the people that have to sit here and try to figure this thing out? What are your thoughts on that side of it? Because, here we are trying to understand what's going to happen here. And I feel bad for these Olympic sports and how they're going to do it. I mean, and granted, a lot of these colleges have big money and whatever, but what are your thoughts to that? The fact that you're trying to create these big-time matchups with all of your sports over 2,000 miles away.
Well, that's the thing that makes so much more sense with what the SEC's done than with what the Big Ten has done. I mean, the Big Ten adds two schools that are, like you say, 2,000 miles away that, don't have any other opponent in conference close to them. I mean, the closest you've got in the Big Ten for those two schools is what? I mean, Nebraska. The closest is Lincoln, and that's still, 1,500, 1,600 miles away. So you don't have anybody close, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. The SEC, if you move to a pod scheduling system, which you're going to have to do for every sport, maybe play 5 opponents twice, and everybody, a few other schools you play once, makes a lot more sense for Oklahoma and Texas to play Texas A&M, Arkansas, and Missouri than it does for Southern Cal to be, trekking cross country to play Ohio State or Michigan. So the SEC, from a travel standpoint, I mean, you expand your footprint, a fair bit, but at the same time, you already have a school in Texas. You have a couple schools who are regionally located. I mean, even LSU is not, a super huge haul. You can take a bus from Texas or Oklahoma to LSU. But the move the Big Ten makes from a travel standpoint, when you're talking about Olympic sports, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And, man, you better hope that Fox really pours out the money in that TV contract so you can fund the travel in your other sports, because that's something that not a lot of people are talking about, the Big Ten's move. But the SEC, I mean, they've got a leg up on everybody when it comes to travel right now.
And that's the thing, and that's a big thing that I can appreciate, that we're talking about here this morning on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, is that, the SEC, and I did a conference realignment map last week, and you can go back and watch that on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt, and definitely make sure you check it out. It's also on the facebook.com/wakeupcalldt feed. So, I definitely would ask people to do that, because it's been, the SEC itself, and you made mention of this, they know what they're doing, right? And even though they're realigning, they're staying in the South. And they've stayed, in this, and I know how some people are like, well, they're not just Southeast anymore. They're a little bit, South Midwest or whatever you want to call it.
They've already been there,
right?
That's been the case for the last 10 years,
right? And that's the thing, is if you look at them on a map, they make sense. And what I also found interesting to take a look at this is there's two other conferences that are taking a page out of their book. And the two other conferences that are doing it, that now will have 14 in football, are the Sun Belt and the American. That if you look at a map, they're taking from the same states that the SEC is taking from. They're following the SEC model, which I think will help them to survive this thing. But you made a great point, which is something that I was talking about last week. The SEC has stayed true to who they are and where they are. It's the Big Ten that's got two that make absolutely no sense. And then, let's get into, because you and I have covered the ACC for a while, the ACC Pac-12 alliance within the joint alliance of the alliance. What the hell is going on with this? And are we going to see Oregon and Syracuse like buckling up against each other? And this is a very weird situation.
Yeah, and one thing that nobody's talking about this is, as cool as it sounds to play a championship game in Las Vegas and try to stay relevant and all that, if the ACC opens up negotiations with ESPN to forge this Pac-12 alliance and try to get more money, all you're doing is opening the door for other conferences to come and raid your teams, because that does away with the grant of rights if you renegotiate TV contracts. So that may be why we haven't heard much more about this ACC Pac-12 alliance. But honestly, I think if that's the ACC's solution to slow down this realignment, then it seems kind of out of step and out of touch, and maybe a tad too late this far into the game to be doing something like that. And like you're saying, from a travel standpoint, how are you going to get, Clemson's volleyball team to Colorado to play, a weekend tournament? It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense from a financial standpoint. And I don't think ESPN's going to be willing to up the ante that much to watch, Pitt play the Buffaloes once a year.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, to see this situation with the Pac-12 and the ACC, I mean, the ACC right now, if they lose Clemson, and you spent a lot of time with Clemson, and listen, I love the ACC, and I spent a decade covering them so far. I'm a big fan of a lot of the things that they do. I'm very confused by what's going on with them, though, right now. And I got to throw it to you for Clemson, because you spent so much time, being an insider in that world at Clemson. And I can't help but say it makes a lot of sense to me to see them join the SEC. They already have their rival in South Carolina. It's sitting right there for them. The SEC, if the SEC, think about it this way, the SEC already has Oklahoma coming in. If they get Clemson, they have the college football playoff. They have a team that's made it a bunch of times in Oklahoma. People forget about that because they haven't, they're not a team that's out there winning it. So you have Oklahoma now. You have Alabama. You have fill in the blank other SEC school, because they always take up half of it. And you have Clemson. If they get Clemson, it's game over for the college football playoff, because the SEC owns it. And I already thought and said this well before any of this new Big 12 realignment stuff came up, that the SEC is going to break away, form their own league, and have their own playoff. But speak with me to this, since you've spent so much time with Clemson. It makes sense to me, and I'm not trying to kill the ACC, because I love the ACC. I'm just talking sensical here. And the reality of it all is your rival is sitting there. You're going to be recruiting against the same areas and the same type of places here. I mean, I would think the SEC is having conversations with Clemson, and I would think that Clemson's trying to figure out if they can get out of their grant of rights situation that's, I think, here until 2036 or something like that. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I think it makes a whole bunch of sense. And you're talking about geographical and travel. I mean, you're talking about putting Clemson in a conference with so many of its geographical rivals. And the Clemson-South Carolina rivalry is a huge piece of this puzzle. If the SEC is talking about breaking away and playing its own schedule within itself and playing for its own playoff, that does away with cross-conference rivalries. The SEC already made it clear that that's what it would do in that scenario in 2020 when it decided to play an all-conference schedule and did away with those games. And I tell you, there were a lot of people on both sides in the Palmetto State that were peeved by that decision. And if the option for Clemson is, be able to, A, stay relevant and compete for championships in football, which is the priority, and B, be able to play your rival that you've been playing for over 100 years, that's an hour and a half down the road, or stay in an ACC that, you have to, travel all the way up the Eastern Seaboard a couple times a year and maybe go to Las Vegas to play against some, against Oregon. If those are the options, then I think Clemson's decision will be pretty easy. It'll be to, hop over to the SEC. And another thing, too, if they can get out of their grant of rights. And another thing, too, is you're playing other traditional rivals. You're playing Georgia, who Clemson's had a historic rivalry that dates back to the 1800s. You're playing other schools that you've formed rivalries with over recent years. You're getting to play Alabama more, which is great for the fans. It's great for TV. And every game, every week would matter. And I think that's a big piece of this puzzle. And, if the ACC's solution is to form this alliance, part two with the Pac-12, instead of, adding Notre Dame or figuring out a way to work with the SEC, then I don't know how much longer this situation is going to be able to work unless the ACC finds some real solutions or find some money in the TV contracts. I mean, if you're looking at the TV contracts now, SEC schools are bringing in $40 million a year. Big Ten schools are bringing in $34 million a year, and ACC schools are getting 14 to 17 from the ACC network and ESPN, and they get that through 2036. That's the other part of the grant of rights, is it locks in that TV contract for a long time.
Yeah,
and it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, because, I mean, when you're looking at those dollars and cents, even if you have to travel a little bit farther a few times a year in Olympic sports, that money makes up for that.
Well, yeah, and you bringing up, that point. I mean, what has the ACC, in your opinion, what have they done wrong?
Not add Notre Dame. Let's be honest, the whole reason that Jim Phillips was brought into the picture in the ACC was to court Notre Dame. That's why, he got the job, because those are his ties. He's got ties to the Irish and hasn't been able to bring that piece in. And now there are all these rumors swirling about Notre Dame in talks with the Big Ten. And if Notre Dame goes to the Big Ten, it will be humiliating for Jim Phillips, and it will be the death of the ACC as soon as it happens. So we'll see what happens. I mean, it could be – we could all just be panicking right now and everything will flatten out here soon. But this certainly feels a lot different than where we were a year ago when Oklahoma and Texas were joining the SEC. It seems like that wasn't an isolated incident, but the marker of a seismic shift.
Yeah, and I mean, who would have thought that USC and UCLA would have made this jump and would have made this decision? But, you just brought it up, and you brought it up very clearly, and you said, the biggest – I said, where did the ACC go wrong? You said one thing. They did not bring in Notre Dame yet. And, Notre Dame spent over a century as an independent, but who is Notre Dame surrounded by? They're surrounded by the Big Ten. The Big Ten, when I did that conference realignment map, it engulfs them. They already have a team in Indiana with the Hoosiers, and here we are, South Bend. It makes sense because the Big Ten can turn around and offer them money. I think there's only 2 more chips to fall that will decide everything. And those 2 chips to fall are Clemson to the SEC and Notre Dame to the Big Ten. To me, those are the only chips that are going to have. At that point, Oregon is an afterthought. Washington is a whatever. Colorado has never made sense in the Pac-12, and wherever they end up, good for them. But the reality to me, and I'm going to bring you back to what I would have done. Now, when the Big 12 was vulnerable, there's things that could have happened that didn't happen. And I want to get your thoughts on this. I had written an article about it, and I said this could be the potential death of the Big 12. Now, if this had happened the way that I had seen it happening, this is how it would have gone down. The Big 12 that had already lost Oklahoma and Texas, the American Athletic at that point had been rated by the Big 12 when it came to coaches multiple years. Every single year, the quote-unquote Power 5 was going after the Americans' coaches. So you look at the Big 12 back in 2019, the Big 12, are they going to take, are they not going to take? I was at the American kickoff for that, and there was this air of what the hell is going to happen, and it was silent, and it was stale, and there was a lot of media there, and, you know, a bunch of them there to see if the Big 12 made a move. So, you know, to have that back and forth, Mike Oresco, who's been on the show a lot, he could have flipped the script as the commissioner of the AAC, and he could have said, okay, Big 12, you're trying to take from me. Now you're vulnerable. I'm going to take from you guys. We're moving our headquarters to Irving, Texas. We could take Baylor. We could take Texas Tech. TCU he already had in the bag with the old Big East. So he can make that run for it, which I thought he was going to do. Then I had the rest of I had Kansas and Kansas State going to the Pac-12. I had Oklahoma State going to the Pac-12. I had the Big Ten taking Iowa State and losing Maryland to the ACC, West Virginia to the ACC. So the ACC gets more of those rivalries, makes more sense of their moves to get Syracuse and Pitt and Boston College a few years ago, and Virginia Tech and whatnot. So the ACC would gain 2. The Big Ten would lose 1, gain 1, so they wouldn't see any difference, keep 14. And that's how I saw this whole thing breaking apart. Everybody got a piece of the pie, and the Big 12 was dead. What are your thoughts on that? Because they could have killed the Big 12 then, and nobody did it. I don't know if it's because they didn't try to do it. I don't know if the ACC thought it wasn't a big enough move to do some of these things. But we wouldn't be sitting here right now if they didn't kill. I mean, they could have killed the Big 12 a few months ago.
Yeah, I mean, it may have made a difference, but still, when you're talking about TV dollars, I mean, any of those moves would still be dwarfed by what the SEC did.
Yeah.
The other part about Notre Dame to the Big Ten is we were talking about rivalries. You preserve a lot of historic rivalries if Notre Dame goes there. If those schools aren't allowed to play anybody else, SEC schools aren't allowed to play anybody else in the super conference model, and Notre Dame's kind of left scrambling for schedules, if they're in the Big Ten, they still get to play their traditional rivalry with Southern Cal. They still get to play their traditional rivalry with Michigan. And they get to add some new intriguing matchups that I think people in that market would love to see. But I think that dismantling the Big 12 may have helped a little bit. But the moves the SEC's made, just so deliberate and, you know, for better or worse, has already changed college football, and I don't think they're done yet. And if we're talking about Clemson leaving, the ACC and Florida State's going with them. I don't know that there's any question about that, that those two would be lockstep in any move. Regardless of where the Seminoles are in football right now, they're still a traditional power. They're still in a fertile recruiting ground, and, you know, who knows in terms of brand, there are a couple other really big brands in the ACC that may be willing to jump to, you know, North Carolina and Miami, namely, would be 2 that would probably be willing to make that move as well if it worked out with the grant of rights. So we'll see what happens. I don't know if this is something that we're talking about that's going to be moving over the next few weeks. I don't know if this is something over the next couple of years. I have no idea what the timeline on these things is going to be, but I would be shocked if these are the last dominoes to fall in you know, this current era.
And that's the thing. Speaking here with Alex Dodd, before I let you go, Alex Dodd hanging out with us, former Clemson reporter working for Rapid City Journal in Rapid City, South Dakota. You talked about the thing that Clemson and Florida State would be in lockstep. Well, Florida's rival is also in the SEC with Florida. So, Florida State and Florida, South Carolina and Clemson sitting right there. It seems like it makes too much sense. I know you just mentioned it, but what makes sense for you if you're the SEC and you want to get to 20, right? So you have Clemson, you have Florida State. Who else do you take? Because we've heard different names. Do you take Louisville for the Louisville-Kentucky rivalry? Do you take Miami because they're not what they used to be? However, it's the Miami market and it's more of Florida. So now you get even deeper ingrained into the state of Florida. If you're the SEC right now and you got all the pull in the world, because you say grant rights to the SEC and they go, yeah, I'll write that. What do you need? Like a couple bucks? So, the SEC, money is not an issue. It is not a thing. The SEC is Thanos with all the Infinity Stones, right? Ready to snap its fingers. So if you're the SEC, besides Florida State and Clemson, who do you take?
North Carolina is the obvious next one. I know it sounds like maybe it doesn't make a lot of sense from a football standpoint, but if you're talking about brands, the University of North Carolina is a top 10 national brand when it comes to college athletics. And basketball is an afterthought in all of this alignment, but North Carolina is a move that makes sense. It's also a place that cares about football success. There's a reason that Kenan Stadium is bigger than the Dean Dome. And gets a larger attendance. If the football team's going 500, that place is packed out. And there's a reason for that. But I think North Carolina is the obvious next step. And then, it is interesting to hear some different names floating around in some of these rumors. I don't know that, I know the Louisville-Kentucky rivalry is big in that area. I don't know if it has a lot of pull in these realignment talks. But, I think Miami would be the one that would really make sense just in terms of a brand, in terms of the way they recruit. You would already have the Florida market pretty much cornered if you had Florida State and Florida. But, again, talking in terms of travel, it wouldn't be a pain to add Miami in there too. And it would still make sense for Olympic sports. So I think that's the one that would make sense. But, they could really take their pick of any number of teams. We've heard people talk about Virginia, heard people talk about Louisville, but I think Miami's the brand that makes sense as that fourth team. But we'll see what happens. Maybe they just add two. Maybe they wait a little bit longer for those other two domino pieces. I don't know. But if the grant of rights falls, I think it makes sense to add those four teams.
Well, and you just created a loophole, Alex, when you were talking about the Pac-12 and the ACC potentially looking at working together and trying to figure out a TV deal for that. If they do that, then if you create a new TV deal, you're leaving your entire conference open. So that, to me, is the wrong move to make. Besides bringing in Notre Dame, is there any other move the ACC can make?
I don't think so. All these other moves from the American or the Sun Belt are great, and what have you, but unless you want to create, you want to have the corner market on the second tier of college football, then I don't really know what other moves there are to make if you can't add Notre Dame. That would actually make a difference and would actually, make ESPN up the ante and give you money to make it worthwhile. I don't know what other moves there are to make.
Yeah, and I would agree with you on this because I think the two that would make sense would be West Virginia and Maryland, but that doesn't cause any type. See, the problem with the ACC right now is the SEC cut off the head of the Big 12, the Big 10 cut off the head of the Pac-12, and no move that the ACC is going to make is going to cut off the head of anybody because those two heads have been cut off. You're not going to cut off the head of the Big 10, and you're not going to cut off the head of the ACC or the SEC. So the ACC has no big moves to make besides Notre Dame. They're not going to cut off anybody's head. But to me, the worst action is inaction. And if I go down to Charlotte next week and I'm sitting there and there's no news, I think that is going to be probably the worst thing the ACC could do is to sit and do absolutely nothing, because if they don't gain anything and they just sit here and kind of wait for the shadow to overtake them, that's what I'm concerned about. Is if I'm sitting at ACC Media Day and nothing has happened with the ACC, that to me would be treacherous waters, and I'd be watching Dabo Swinney's face in every single second in every single meeting, because something about that just wouldn't sit right with me if a week from now the ACC has still done nothing.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's going to be interesting to see what comes out of this media cycle that we're about to jump into. I think there's going to be a lot of emotions maybe that are expressed by some of these commissioners, and it'll be interesting to see what goes on. There are going to be a lot of questions asked of coaches too, but a lot of those will probably go unanswered. But it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, and I know some coaches are going to say, listen, we're going to suit up and play against whoever we have to play. But, I mean, Alex, did you think a decade ago, and I mean, do you think that when we met years and years ago at an ACC kickoff, that we would be sitting here today going, there may not be an ACC? I mean, this happened so quick. I don't think anybody imagined the Pac-12 dying. I don't think anybody, thought that was going to happen. But here we are sitting this morning saying, the ACC was supposed to be a powerhouse, right? They were supposed to be vying with the Big Ten to be the second best overall behind the SEC. And, some people arguing the ACC is better basketball and this and that. I mean, did you ever think we'd be sitting here in a world where the Atlantic Coast Conference would be threatened by anybody? Because that, I mean, with Swofford, let me tell you something about, and this too, John Swofford, and I'm not taking anything away from Jim Phillips because he has to take over at a time that's extremely difficult, but John Swofford was a guy that I thought if anybody came to the ACC, he'd be on the porch with a shotgun. You know what I mean? Like he was that type of guy, and he'd sit with you and he was nice and good to be with you, but the way that he handled himself, I'm like, nobody's coming to this place. And maybe he knew it, and maybe that's why he stepped away. But, I didn't imagine a world where the ACC would ever be threatened. I thought they would be the one threatening. So does this feel weird to you as well?
Yeah, it definitely feels weird. And I think John Swofford exited stage left at a perfect time. I know it probably was. I don't know how much it had to do with that. I mean, he ran the ACC for a lot of years, but I definitely, his loyalty was clear. I don't think that Jim Phillips is not loyal, but I think he's just kind of has his hands tied on a lot of these moves. And unfortunately for the ACC, it didn't make a lot of sense for them to make any of these power moves. And now any move would probably be too little and too late. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Maybe we're all just alarmists. Maybe we're all just, the person screaming and saying the end is nigh on the corner. But, who knows? It certainly feels like we're heading in that direction.
Well, I mean, I think it's really going to come down to the guy who's always last to go to the podium, and that is Dabo Swinney, right? Because he's gonna speak his mind, I'm sure. And that, you've been around him a lot. I've had the opportunity to interview him and be around him as well. So, in closing here, how do you picture the Dabo of today, as we know that he's going to be asked a lot of questions, and he's a person that says what he feels and how he feels. If he doesn't like it, he's going to tell you, and if he does like it, he's going to defend it. So I would imagine something's going to be said.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I honestly, I don't see much more than coach speak coming out of him probably about this stuff, just because it's ongoing and really, quite frankly, as strange as it sounds, it's above him. It's hard to think that anything's above him at Clemson, but this would be something that his input would be valued, but the decision making is out of his hands. So I don't know how much you hear him say about it, but he may have some thoughts on what's happening elsewhere, but I don't know that we'd hear anything in terms of offering solutions or whatever. Now at their spring meetings or in conversations with other coaches or ADs or Jim Phillips, I mean, I'm sure that are probably a lot more candid conversations. But I don't know how much we'd hear from him from a podium at ACC, but he certainly will be asked about it.
Yeah, no, he definitely will. And you said without Notre Dame, then the ACC is done. That's the only move that they can make. If they lose Clemson, can they survive? If they lost, well, probably like you said, Florida State, but can the ACC survive that?
I'm not going to say the ACC can't survive. It just will never be the same. I don't know that, I mean, these other conferences survive. I mean, you have the American's going to survive, the Sun Belt's going to survive, but it's hard to think that the ACC wouldn't be relegated to the same ranks if all of these moves happen. I mean, it'll survive. It just won't be the same. You may be at the Best Western in Charlotte for ACC Media Days instead of the Westin.
I might be up in South Dakota because they might be scrapping for teams, brother.
Yeah,
I might be up there with you.
Come over and take the Coyotes and the Jackrabbits. Maybe that's the ACC's move.
At this point, it doesn't matter. At this point, I think people are going to start taking, I don't know, football. Or they're going to take AC Milan. They're going to say football's football. They'll start taking.
Football.
They'll take FC Barcelona, make some things happen here, see what they could do. Somebody will take Manchester City, Manchester United. But, it is the conference realignment world, and it is crazy. And Alex Dodd spending a lot of time with the ACC and Clemson, giving us his insight. Former Clemson reporter working for Rapid City Journal and Rapid City, South Dakota. Brother, I appreciate it once again for you taking some time with us. We will definitely stay in touch and continue the conversation if and when a move has been made, but I appreciate you taking some time as you've had an inside look at a lot of this, and you've been around it. You've been around the world of the ACC, and you've been around the world of Clemson for a long time, so I definitely appreciate your thoughts on this, and always appreciate having you on the show.
Thanks, Dan. I appreciate it, too. Enjoy the show.
All right, take care. Have a good day.
All right, bye.
See you. That coming from Alex Dodd once again on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. Life is interesting, folks, and it's going to continue to be interesting, I think is maybe an interesting way to put it. It's going to be crazy potentially, and hopefully not. Listen, I love the ACC. I love my experience with the ACC. I want to see the ACC survive and thrive, and they, in order to do so, are going to have to make some type of a move. And Notre Dame, and I agree with Alex, and I said it, before Alex came on the show, I said it last week, this is the only move they can make that is going to really hit a certain way. Outside of that, there's really no other move that, Clemson can make, because I don't see anybody leaving the SEC. I don't see anybody leaving the Big Ten, and outside of trying to attack, I mean, you're not going to take from them is what I'm looking at here. And the Big 12, I mean, maybe could you steal? I mean, maybe that could be the move, right? To try and steal from the Big 12 and say, hey, you know what? While you guys are sitting here trying to take from the Pac-12, we're going to take from you. The thing is who's got the better poker face and who's got the money and who has the means to make this thing work. And whatever you're doing, if you're going to open up a new grant of rights, then you have to put yourself in a situation where you're going to, as was just said, very well put by Alex Dodd, right? If the Pac-12 and the ACC decide to join for a new deal with ESPN, they're going to have to open up their grant of rights. If they open up their grant of rights, then they're leaving everybody vulnerable for the picking. And maybe the SEC is sitting here waiting for the ACC to make that bad checkers move, right, where they back into a king, not knowing or forgetting that a king can jump backwards, right? So, I think that's the situation that we're in right now. They forgot about the double move. They forgot about what a king can do, and maybe that's what they're waiting for. Maybe the SEC is waiting for exactly that. They're waiting for the ACC to back into them because they're going to have to go to a new grant of rights. And if something like that happens, well, then the ACC is going to try to make the right move, and it's going to end up being the wrong move. and somebody's going to get double jumped or jump backwards, and that's not going to be the situation that you want to be in if you're the ACC. So for the ACC, the worst action is inaction right now. They got to do something, and they're going to have to make this thing click and make it click right now. So we'll see what they have on the docket. We'll see what they have to do here, and we'll obviously be with them in Charlotte. So I'll have plenty to say on the ACC coming up next week as Wake Up Call will go live from Charlotte, North Carolina, and definitely sports meets that thing called life. So the air is going to be still for the time being. That could change in the next 2 minutes, right? How many times has Wake Up Call been live where breaking news has happened, and I've been sitting here with you saying, hey, we get to release what was just, put out there. And so you never know what's going to happen on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, and God always seems to put me in the right place at the right time. So we'll see what this life is going to be like for the ACC as the world continues to roll forward in realignment. But I do believe the ACC is going to have to make a move, some type of a move, and the one that seems to make the most sense is Notre Dame. Do what you got to do to get the Fighting Irish to join in football. They've joined in every other sport. The Big East figured out how to get them to join in everything else, but could never get them to join in football. Now you have to do one up from the Big East and show that you really are a power conference by showing your might. So let's see if the ACC will do it and what will happen and how the response will be. Maybe, I would imagine those conversations have been ongoing all the way through. I would imagine that the conversation of Notre Dame joining the ACC has been there for a decade now, and I believe that it'll continue to be there. But now you got to ramp it up, you got to sweeten the pot, you got to figure it out, because Notre Dame can sit here and they can wait it out. They can watch every chip fall. Notre Dame doesn't have to worry about anything. And I said, if you wanted to make this, if you really, really wanted to make Notre Dame have to make a move, it's an easy move by the College Football Playoff Committee. All you have to do is simply say to Notre Dame, if you're not in a conference, you can't qualify. And that would have them join a conference immediately. If you don't have a conference, you can't qualify for the College Football Playoff. If somebody wanted to force the hand right now of Notre Dame, they could do that. And in 2026, there is no College Football Playoff contract. So they could do it then and say, listen, here, if you don't join a conference, then guess what? You're going to be out of luck and you're going to be playing for nothing. So, I definitely think that there's a way to force the hand of Notre Dame. It hasn't been utilized yet. I think it needs to be utilized, and the quicker that it's utilized, we can put ourselves in a position to see Notre Dame make a move. But I think Clemson's potential move and Notre Dame's move are the things that could end this for good and put it all to bed. Clemson to the SEC, Notre Dame to the ACC, or to the Big Ten, to me, would definitely be the final two moves in this stage of realignment that could cripple everything except for the conferences that they're joining. So with that being said, we'll take a step aside for a fast break on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora from inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. Thanks for hanging out with us every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Avicoli's, located on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, has been your trusted neighbor for decades. Located just steps from Liverpool High School, we're happy to have the Liverpool Warriors on-site, on-location broadcast at Avicoli's through Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora every single month, featuring student athletes, coaches, and administration throughout the year from Liverpool High School. Head out to Avicoli's today on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, open Tuesday through Sunday for lunch, dinner, and drinks. We'd love to see you out there. And of course, you can call them at 315-622-5100 for takeout, delivery, and catering. That's 315-622-5100. And also find them on myavicolis.com. That's myavicollis.com. Having peace of mind when you're out of town that your furry-loving friend is safe and sound means taking them to Canine Campground, because we all know that when it comes to the love of our pets, it goes well beyond the call of duty to make sure they're safe and sound. Right, Lily? So take a ride to 242 Johnson Street in East Syracuse, New York, and see Canine Campground and where your dog will be staying in the classic cabin, the executive cabin, the grand cabin, or of course the luxury cabin, because if you know Lily, you know she loves luxury. Now you don't have to wait to the last minute to find a family member or a friend that'll take your dog for a few days. Call Canine Campground at 315-299-4013. That's 315-299-4013. Their drop-off and pickup times are Monday through Sunday. Check K9campground.com for more information. That's the letter K, the number 9, and campground spelled with a K.com. K9campground.com.
When you're going out of town, bring your dog to Canine Campground.
PB&J's Lunchbox, the food truck that you love finding all throughout central and upstate New York, now has a street-side cafe. So when you're craving their traditional favorites as well as their out-of-box amazing menu items, you can now head to 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York. Located just minutes from the highway, the Thruway, Destiny USA, and Onondaga Lake Parkway, PB&J's Lunchbox Street-Side Cafe is there for you Monday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner all throughout the day. Get breakfast for dinner, dinner for lunch, whatever you fancy, including their award-winning grilled peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Find them at 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York. PB&J's Lunchbox, where we love to know what's in your lunchbox. As a patient, what do we want? To be cared for, to be listened to, and to have someone walk us through the process on our path to victory. Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics does all of those things beautifully, with Dr. Mark Petropoli leading the team on 791 West Genesee Street in Skaneateles, New York, located minutes from beautiful Skaneateles Lake. Whatever your injury may be from head to toe, preventative care, rehab, physical therapy, laser therapy, and surgery are all available at Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, where they care about us, they listen to us, and they understand that everyone's path to victory is a little bit different. Let them help you on yours by calling 315-685-7544 to make your appointment today. That's 315-685-7544. And find out more information at victorysportsmedicine.com. Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios, hanging out with you where sports meets that thing called life, talking about conference realignment and everything that's been going on and everything that could happen. I implore you to go back and watch our broadcast where I brought out the map and show you the conference realignment map, what has happened, what could happen. And I thought it was a great point that was brought up by Alex Dodd. It's something that you know we had talked about here on the show, and definitely, you know, I thought it was something that maybe isn't spoken about enough, is the fact that the SEC has stayed pretty true to, I mean, not pretty true, they've stayed true to being in the South, you know, and to have Alex, you know, echo that sentiment, you know, that's what I saw on the map. They've stayed true to being in the South, right? That's where they are, that's who they are, that's what they do. So even though realignment's been crazy, they have stayed true to being in their area, which, you know, can make sense for them. They're not reaching out all over the place, you know. They spread themselves out, but not to a point where it doesn't make any sense. Now, the American Athletic, they don't have to abide by any type of thing. I mean, nobody really does, but the American Athletic, think about it, you know, they renamed themselves the American. They didn't put a number on it, thank God, and they didn't put a region on it. They just put America because, you know, the American Athletic Conference, Mike Resco, and rebranding it after the Catholic Seven took the Big Ten logo and name, you know, Mike got to, you know, a point where, and for you, I think it really made a lot of sense to me to, you know, call it the American, and it still makes a lot of sense, especially now more than ever, to call themselves the American, because it was a really intelligent thing to do at the time, to say, let's not be a region. We don't know where realignment's going. Let's not put a number on this. We don't know where realignment's going. So let's just be the American. Let's function as the American. And let's tell people that, we are America's conference, right? We're the conference that can go anywhere, can be anywhere, and, can accomplish great feats. So I think that that's great, because I think these regional conferences, it doesn't make sense anymore, right? In the Big Ten doesn't make any sense, because the Big Ten has 14. They're going to have 16. The Big 12 had 10. So the Big 12 was actually the Big 10, and the Big 10 was the Big 14. And now the Big 12 is going to have 12, but the Pac-12 that didn't change their name and then changed their name to the Pac-12, but now they have the Pac-10. You just need to get rid of numbers, because it doesn't make any sense, especially with everything going on with realignment. I mean, these things could change in an instant. And people don't always talk about this, because they're not like the Oklahomas and the Notre Dames and the whatnots of the world, but there's teams that switch conferences after a year. There's some of these teams that are jumping ship and going, hey, we're going to go here. Hey, we're going to reclassify. We're going to come up to D1A or D1A and whatnot. And then they end up jumping ship and switching conferences. So, there's a lot of things that, look at UNC Charlotte, right? They come up and they become, an FBS team. They spend a little bit of time inside of Conference USA, and now they're already jumping to the American. So, there's a lot of moves that are being made that aren't always getting the spotlight, but realignment continues to happen, and realignment is, it's the story of the day. I mean, honestly, it feels like it happens every single year, pardon me. But in Oklahoma and Texas's case, it made a ripple effect that was felt all the way through. I was talking with, and you could go back and watch our specials with Lemoyne by going to the Lemoyne tab on wakeupcalldt.com, as well as by subscribing to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/wakeupcalldt, and you could check us out there. But, I spoke with Bob Beretta, the AD of Lemoyne, about this, and about the fact that, they're a Division II school looking at realignment. Why are they looking at realignment? Well, because they said they felt the ripple effects of Oklahoma and Texas making that move, that affects everybody. And people don't always think about that's affecting all divisions, right? Because if you're going to have realignment happen and the Big 12 is going to lose, so then the Big 12 is going to take from the American, so the American is going to take from Conference USA, then Conference USA might look around and say, okay, well, now we're going to have to go and get these teams that are Division I AA or Division II, and we're going to have them move up. Well, if they move up, then then those Division IIs got to fill in the space, and then they might have to go to Division III and say, help us fill in these spaces. So, you can see very quickly how a move by two schools can affect one conference to another conference to another conference to another conference to another division to then another division. And now we're looking at the fact that Division I, Division II, and Division III have all been affected by the fact that two schools decided to go to the SEC. So, realignment is rearing its head, and we're going to continue to have the conversation on realignment as it continues to shape up here. And of course, like I said, I'll be down in Charlotte next week, and I'll have the opportunity to be around the coaches and the players, and we'll be talking about a lot of different things, and maybe there'll be a move by then, maybe there won't be a move by then, but you could be sure that I'm going to be there no matter what, by the grace of God, to have the conversations that need to be had and see the things and kind of get a feel for the room. So I'm excited to have the opportunity to do that. Always happy and thankful to the American Athletic Conference for what we're going to get to do in their kickoff coming up, and for the ACC's kickoff next week. Always grateful and thankful to them for involving me for the past decade pretty much. So definitely appreciate everything that we get to do, and want to thank all the conferences and commissioners and executive directors that I've been able to speak with, over these past few months to shed some light on what's going on and to make sure that their conference has a voice, because not every conference feels like they do. And outside of realignment times and some of these things, a lot of these conferences don't feel heard. And, you've heard that from Noreen Morris of the Northeast Conference, right? They're all sitting at the table, but does everybody really feel like they're being heard? And that's what this show's always been about, is making sure that everybody has a voice, everybody has a place, everybody feels welcome, and that everybody gets to sit at the table. They may not get to sit at the table, in this person's house or that person's house, but for Wake Up Call and what I can control, they sit at my table. So always happy to have everybody here, and we don't turn anybody away. Every conference is welcome to say their piece and give their thoughts, and would love to hear from them all, and we're working to do so. So I definitely want to give a big thank you to all the conferences that have allowed me the opportunity to speak with them, and I definitely look at continuing the Commissioner Central series and getting to do a lot more here in the country. It's always a beautiful thing to get to have these commissioners on to speak their mind. So with that being said, we're going to take a step aside for a fast break. When we come back, Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora will have the opportunity to shift into the recruitment world and speak with Jayden Sellers. Jayden Sellers is the younger brother of Lanorris Sellers, 2023 quarterback who has committed to Syracuse. And Jayden has his first offer from the Syracuse Orange, first D1 offer that he got from Syracuse. He's a 2025 wide receiver. He's got one more season to play on the field with his brother before his brother hopefully keeps that commitment, comes to Syracuse, and then Jayden has an opportunity to come to Syracuse in a few years. We'll talk with Jayden Sellers right after this fast break. He'll be with us from South Carolina, ironically, where Alex Dodd used to be with Clemson. So South Carolina getting a big-time shout-out today on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets that thing called life. We'll be back inside the Cafe Cubal studios right after this. In these unique times, there are those in our community that give us a sense of normalcy and positivity. Pizza Man on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville has been here for you for over 35 years and is here now. Call 315-638-1234 or order online at pizzamanbville.com to bring those familiar tastes into your home. And remember to come see our monthly on-site broadcasts centered around the community and our Baldwinsville Bees. Pizza Man in Baldwinsville. Any way you slice it, they are always here for you.
This is Jimmer Sikowski, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Cicero, 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, right in front of the Home Depot. I had a deep feeling that God wanted me to do something bigger with my life and to help people, help others. I kept putting Chick-fil-A in my life, and I realized as I was going through the franchise selection process that positively impacting the lives of others was really core to what we do here at Chick-fil-A. First of all, it starts with the food. The food is brought in fresh daily. We bring in local produce. We prepare to order in the kitchen. We hand bread our chicken. We hand spin our milkshakes. It's great food. It doesn't taste like fast food. I think the second thing is the way people feel when they come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. It's different. We try to treat people with intentional kindness here, which is very different and deeper than good customer service. And so I think it feels remarkable for most people to come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And then lastly, the impact that we try to have in the community is very different. It's a big part of the expectation of every operator of a Chick-fil-A restaurant is that they're actively engaged in their community, they're a leader in the community, and they're making a difference. When they realize that what we're striving to do is to shine a little light in their life, that's a very, very different experience than you will have at any other quick service restaurant. And it's that remarkable experience that I think people will emotionally connect with.
I'm George Townsend of Honda City with some good advice when buying a new car. The true cost of owning a new car is determined by the appraised value when you trade it. No vehicle appraises higher than a Honda. Next, look for low APRs and deep discounts. You also want low maintenance costs and great fuel economy. That's why my advice to you is to buy a new Honda. Looking pre-owned, visit our Honda Certified Used Car Center. Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard, Liverpool, or HondaCity-CNY.com.
It would be a pity if you don't shop at Honda City.
Our corporate purpose at Chick-fil-A is to glorify God by being faithful stewards of all that's entrusted to us and to positively influence all those who come in contact with Chick-fil-A. And what became increasingly clear from our success in Cicero is that people love Chick-fil-A. And also I think we recognized that we had a great opportunity to grow the brand and grow our platform. I felt incredibly grateful when I was selected to be a Chick-fil-A operator. I think what it's meant for me, what I've come to realize on a very deep level is that this is a calling for me. It's not a career. It's not a job. The Lord called me to be a Chick-fil-A operator and to use these restaurants to glorify Him and to positively influence other people. I'm blessed. I'm very blessed.
Head to Chick-fil-A Clay on 3974 State Route 31 in Liverpool, New York. Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. You're hanging out with us worldwide on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt and on wakeupcalldt.com's homepage where you're listening. You're also with us on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt, facebook.com/wakeupcalldt, and on facebook.com/livenowdt. So however you're tuning in every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time, we appreciate you, and I'm very happy as we continue on the recruiting trail, something that we've done for many years here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. We have the opportunity to spotlight those recruits from around the country, and we're here this morning with Jayden Sellers. Jayden Sellers coming from South Florence High School. He's the incoming freshman class of 2025 for college football, and he plays receiver. So very happy to have Jayden here on the show after receiving his first collegiate offer, which comes from Syracuse University. Jayden, how you doing today?
Good. How about you?
I'm doing very well. And Jayden, let's hop right into it. Where did it all start for you? I know you and I were talking off the air about the fact that your baby picture on Twitter is there when you were 2 years old. So when did you fall in love with football? Was it that early on? Was it shortly after? When can you remember falling in love with the sport of football?
Well, I fell in love with playing football when I was 4 years old. And I was playing football with my brother in the front yard and my dad. And that's how it started.
So you said it started when you were 4 years old. Why did it start back then? Was that just when you first got after it with your family? I mean, why do you think you fell in love with it? I mean, sometimes, pick up a football, play with it for a little while, then go pick up a baseball or a basketball. Why did football interest you so much? What was it about the game?
Well, when I was younger, I was a defensive player, and I loved tackling people, and that's really it.
So, like you said, getting out there and tackling people defensively, that's something that you love to do. When you went up against your brother, who I know is a couple years older than you here, what was that experience like, and have you guys always been competitive out there in the backyard?
Yes, sir. We always been competitive. He always beat me, but I didn't take it lightly. Yeah. Yes, sir.
So bring me into that, your time with your brother out there. How has he made you better, and how do you feel like maybe you've made him a better player?
Well, I feel like he made me a better player because he always used to bully me and run me over. And my dad would laugh at me and now make me mad. And I got stronger off that. And I really don't think I made him better because I was really no competition for him when I was young.
Do you feel like now, though, that you've gotten to play together on varsity, are there things that you do as a wide receiver with your brother being a quarterback that you feel like can make him better? Is there anything you feel like you're doing now in your game that maybe helps him out?
Yes, sir. I feel like I'm real good at running like deep routes, so I feel like I test his arm to see how far he can throw and stuff like that. Like, yes, sir.
So, Jayden, for you, when you look at this game, like you said, you started wanting to play defensively, and you appreciated that side of the ball. What made you turn into a wide receiver, and when did you transition into that?
My eighth grade year, I was at safety, and the varsity coach said if I wanted to play varsity, I had to move to wide receiver because we didn't have a lot of wide receivers my freshman year. Well, last year.
You know, and you know, like you said, having to switch there because they needed more help at wide receiver. How quickly did you start to enjoy that and see yourself as a wide receiver? I mean, before having to move to that position, did you ever think of it? And then secondly, you know, how long were you in the position at wide receiver before you really sat back and thought like, hey, I really could do something with this?
No, I thought I was going to go to college to be a DB, but when the coach told me I had to move to wide receiver, that's when I realized that I have no choice but to fall in love with wide receiver because I'm only going to play one position in college.
So, I mean, obviously being a DB gives you the opportunity to understand the world of a wide receiver, how to read them, how to read their route running, how to read the quarterback. So has that aided you, in your opinion, shifting from DB to wide receiver? Do you feel like it's been maybe an easier transition for you because you had to understand how to beat a wide receiver? So now being a wide receiver yourself, you know what a DB is going to do and you know what you were kind of trained to do. So has that helped you, in your opinion, to outsmart a defensive back, so to speak?
Yes, sir. I always know what coverage, like most of the time I know what coverage they run in because I can see how far they play off or play on and if they're physical or not.
And so for you, being on the team that you're on, I mean, jump into varsity and having the opportunity to go out there and play for, you know, South Florence on that varsity side of things. Bring me into that season and what you took away from playing varsity so far.
It goes by really fast. And the players was much bigger than me because I was so young.
Oh, my Lord. Hey, we lost you again there. So you were saying it goes by really fast. You can go from there.
Yes, sir. It goes by really fast. And the players were way bigger than me, so I was real nervous before the game. But my teammate told me to get over that and practice.
And what did they do? What did your teammates do to help you kind of shake those nerves off?
Well, during practice, they'll get in my head, smack me and all this stuff, like smack me in the helmet and all this stuff to get me angry and stuff like that.
And so that works for you, that anger, that tough love, you feed off of that?
Yes, sir.
Is that something that your brother did or your dad did or both of them growing up, that if you were, you know, kind of getting in your own head on the field, did they ever do that to you, you know, kind of smack you in the helmet and try to get you upset, get you angry? I mean, is that something that's always worked since you were young, or is that something that's more new now that you're playing varsity ball?
Well, my brother always used to run me over in the yard, so that got me mad, but they really just started smacking me in my helmet and stuff like that during practice. Because I play better when I'm mad.
And you say you play better when you're mad. When did you find out that was a way to kind of get through to you and that you would play better when you're mad?
My 8th grade year when I was playing against Hartsville. That's when I found out.
And what happened in that game that's when you found out?
They was, I would say, grabbing my face mask, and the ref wasn't calling it, and then I got angry. And I played way better, but we still lost that game.
So, but you know, obviously you use that as fuel, and you go into your varsity season here, and you go into what happened this past season in 2021. Bring us into 2021 and just how things went with South Florence down there in South Carolina. Bring me into your season this past season and what those, you know, big moments were that you take away that you can feed off of going into this season.
I would say probably the South Point game. We was playing against South Point. I think that's when we lost our first game. When we played against South Point. That was the state championship team. And then how we lost to them. We played them this year. I don't really know. I don't have a good answer for that question.
So, I mean, as you step forward here, Jayden, when you look at your game and what you're capable of, what you can do, what are the best parts of your game at wide receiver, your best attributes, and then where are the areas that you feel like you need to work on the most?
I'm real fast, so I burn DBs easily. I take up space easily, and I need to work on my double moves. That's what I really need to work on. That's really it.
What advice has your brother given you as he's gone through the recruiting process and had different teams reach out to him and whatnot? What has Lanorris said to you about what he's experienced?
He told me it's a lot, and you have a lot of responsibility, and a lot of eyes will be on you.
And when you saw him, you know, as a family, when he committed to Syracuse, bring me into, you know, how he told you. What was that experience like, and what did you take away from it, seeing your older brother decide on a school in his recruitment?
I've seen that he wants a school that really loves him and that shows him the most favoritism. Yeah. And he want to be an engineer, so he want to go to a good education school too.
You know, and for you, when you see your brother commit to Syracuse, and then here at the end of June, I believe on June 28th, you received your scholarship offer from Syracuse yourself. Bring me into that moment. How did you find out that you got the scholarship offer? Bring me into everything that happened when Syracuse offered you.
I was sitting beside my mom, and we was on a Zoom call with the Syracuse wide receiver coach. And he told me that he was impressed with my film and that he was giving me my first offer. I was shocked that they offered me.
And why were you shocked?
I don't know, because it was just a normal day, and I didn't really expect to talk to no colleges or nothing.
So you get that offer, you know your brother's going to Syracuse. Have you guys talked about that? Talked about what the future could look like? You're playing on varsity together for the first time. You've been through that together. You get to have a little bit more time together on the field, and then he'll be heading off to Syracuse. Is that a real thought in your mind now that after playing with him in high school, you could play with him in college?
Yes, sir. I really love that I'll be able to play with my brother in college. That I have a chance to play with my brother in college.
So, do you have a school that you grew up with that you fell in love with? Do you have a school you're hoping offers you? I mean, how do you look at your recruitment?
I really wanted to be offered by Clemson when I was younger, but then that's when I really didn't. I just wanted to go play football for school.
And so getting that offer from Syracuse, like you said, you didn't expect it. Having that now and knowing that Lanorris is going there, does that put Syracuse in a special place with you? I mean, I know you have plenty of time to get recruited, but where does Syracuse stand with that, and how do you feel about Syracuse right now?
I love Syracuse, and they'll always be at the top of my list, like top 3.
And for you, I mean, you have plenty of time to go out there and see what else can be done. Knowing that you have another season with Lanorris, what are you most looking forward to? Him being a quarterback, you being a wide receiver, the fact that you can be a tandem and Sellers squared is something that we can see out there on the field once again. What are you looking forward to this season, and what does that mean to you to have another opportunity with your brother?
I'm looking forward to me and him are looking forward to breaking records this year and getting our first state championship together.
And how do you feel about, the team that you have coming back and what you have going on? I mean, you want to get that state championship, you want that opportunity. What makes you believe you can do it?
Our team got dedication. We didn't have a bad season last year, but when my brother got injured, that's when we knew that we might not win the state championship this year. But now that we got him back, we looking forward to getting a ring.
And so now you have that opportunity to go forward and do that. What's Dad like? Bring me into how Dad is. What's life like with Pops? And I know that he's been interviewed a little bit here, but your family in general, what do they think about the fact that your brother's going to play college ball in the FBS? You have the opportunity to do that as well. Bring me into the family and what life is like in the Sellers household now that you and your brother have an opportunity to play ball at the college football's highest level in Division 1A.
Well, he's excited because he put us through a lot with football, made us train a lot, made us work a lot, and now he's happy to see that it's all paying off.
What is one of the things that your dad had you do in training that you like the least?
I would say the lifting weights part.
Okay. Now, have you grown to like it more now? Do you feel, more comfortable with it now? Maybe didn't like it in the beginning?
I still don't like it. It's just I'm used to it, and I just don't complain no more.
What is the workout regimen thing that you like the most?
I don't like benching. Yeah, because that's not my strong part of weightlifting.
Do you have something that you like the most though?
I would say hand cleaning. That's the one.
Okay, fair enough. With that being said, that coming from Jayden Sellers here with us, has an offer from Syracuse, his first scholarship offer that came at the end of June on June 28th. His older brother, Lanorris Sellers, is committed to the Syracuse University football team. And here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. Jayden, before I let you go on my show, we do something that is called Rapid Fire. It gives us an opportunity to get to know you a little bit better, and you get to put me on the hot seat as well. So could have something to do with sports, could have nothing to do with sports, totally up to you. But it gives you an opportunity to be the interviewer for a few moments here. So you're going to ask me 3, I'm going to ask you 3. We'll go back and forth. You can ask me whatever you want, and I have to answer it. So fire when ready.
All right. What's your favorite position in college football?
Wow, my favorite position in college football is tough. I would probably say quarterback or running back. I've always been a fan of the running back. Always been a fan of seeing somebody power through the pile and break out and, make those real quick moves. I grew up on Barry Sanders and Emmitt Smith and all that. So I would say running back. I love the quarterback position. And obviously, wide receiver going off of that, but I would probably say quarterback just because of everything that's on their shoulders in the game, how tough it is, how hard it is to read, how quick you got to get the ball out. So running back and quarterback are probably the two that I would pay attention to the most.
Yes, sir.
My first question for you, Jayden, is tell me something that you love to do as a hobby that has nothing to do with football.
Playing games.
All right, what games do you play?
I play Fall Guys, I play Madden, and 2K.
All right, of those 3 games, which one do you think you're the best at, and tell me why?
I would say Fall Guys because, that's the easiest game to play, and just I have no clue. I'm real good at that game.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. What is your second one? What's your second one for me?
What sport did you play when you was in high school?
I played basketball.
Oh, you was a hooper.
Yeah. Yeah, I played basketball. Played basketball pretty much all my life. And yeah, I mean, I still to this day, I'll go out on a court and I like playing. I like just going out there in silence. No music, nothing. I mean, I could do it with music, but I just go out there and play, and it helps me clear my mind. So I love basketball. My second question for you, Jayden. If you could only have one food for the rest of your life, what would you eat and why?
I would say collard greens.
Okay, why?
It's because when I was young, my grandma made real good collard greens, and yeah, that's pretty good.
All right, coming from Grandma, can we shout out Grandma? What's her first name?
Sarah.
All right, so shout out to Sarah. Appreciate. Is she still with us?
No, sir. She passed away.
When did she pass?
2016.
2016. Okay, well, shout out to Grandma in heaven, Sarah. I'm sure she's making some good collard greens up there, and she's hanging out with my grandmother, who's both of my grandmas very good cooks. So you got a guardian angel looking over you, and I'm sure she appreciated your answer for sure. What's your last one for me?
Let's see. What is your favorite hobby?
My favorite hobby, there's a lot. I would say I love music. I love making music. I love singing. I love going to the movies. Big fan of the movies. I like screenwriting and creating my own stories, which is connected to that movie world. So yeah, I mean, I would say I just love creating stuff. I love making things. I have a big imagination. So I love making things. I love challenging myself. And I just really like creating things and bringing things to life.
That's what's up.
My last question for you, Jayden. If you could go on a date with any celebrity in the world, who would you pick and why?
Zendaya.
Okay. Why? Good choice, but why? Why Zendaya?
I don't know. It's just she's beautiful, man. That's really my celebrity crush.
All right, I like it. It's a good answer. I'll take that. With that being said, that's coming from Jayden Sellers here with us from South Florence in Florence, South Carolina. Very happy to have him here on the show with us as he has his first offer collegiately for Syracuse as the incoming freshman class of 2025. Jayden, I appreciate you being here. I'm happy to talk with you right at the beginning of your recruitment, and I definitely look forward to getting to know you over the years here and having you back on. And as your recruitment continues to move forward, definitely would love to continue to tell your story on your journey. So say hi to the family for me, and I thank you once again for being a part of the show.
Thank you, too.
Cafe Cabal offers same-day local delivery of our products, offering no delivery charge for Onondaga County. Shop cafecabal.com for fresh roasted coffee beans, cold brew, travel mugs, and all your essential Cafe Cabal needs. Cafe Cabal, coffee for the soul.
Hi, this is Amy from Mother's Cupboard, home of the whole frittata. We are open daily 6 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. For takeout orders, call 315-432-0942 and tune in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora for our monthly food challenge and try our Wake Up Call signature menu item available 7 days a week. Here at Mother's Cupboard, we are Central New York, and it's our honor to serve you.
Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory remind us that every day is worth celebrating. Find them at 201 Old 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York, open Monday through Saturday in-store and all the time online at maandpaspopcorn.com. Serving our Central New York community and beyond, you can order all throughout the country at maandpaspopcorn.com. And remember to get your tins, which have in-store half-price refills forever. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, available to you for fundraising and all of your events by calling 315-450-6272. That's 315-450-6272. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you?
Witty Wicks Candles and Gift Shop, Township 5, Camillus, where you will find handcrafted all-natural soy wax candles over 60 cents to freshen up your home. We carry a wide range of locally made items, Syracuse, Syracuse Salt, and Chocolate Pizza Company, to name a few. Let our knowledgeable staff help choose unique gifts and keepsakes for any occasion. Gifts for family and friends, and maybe a little something for yourself. Witty Wicks Candles and Gift Shop, Township 5, Camillus.
Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora from inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. Very happy to be here with you, and thank you so much for being a part of the show where sports meets that thing called life. Of course, Cafe Kubal, located for you on 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, and 401 South Salina Street, all in Syracuse, New York. You could also find them by going to the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road at Sweetheart Corners in North Syracuse in their drive-thru, and you can find them out in Manlius in the giant behemoth of a brown-striped building. I call it the Manlius Welcome Center, and that's on 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, New York. Can't miss it. So thank you for supporting local and supporting Cafe Kubal. If you're out of town, go to cafekubal.com. That's KUBAL.com. So make sure you do that today. Big thanks to Jayden Sellers for joining the show and giving us some thoughts on his brother Lanorris, who's committed to Syracuse, as well as on himself and his thoughts on getting that first D1 offer from Syracuse with a few seasons to play there in high school in South Florence High School in Florence, South Carolina. So South Florence in Florence South. It's kind of exciting, that little play on words. And a big thanks to Alex Dodd today for being a part of the show. We have a few more minutes with you. Greg said, what are the chances of getting Brianna Stewart? Hey, listen, I've been trying to get Brianna Stewart here. I'd love to have Brianna Stewart on the show. So that's a definite one that I would love to have. And it's about hopefully finding a way to get that done. Brianna Stewart's always welcome on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. I would love to have her. So I would love to talk to her. And that would be great. So very happy to be here with you where sports meets that thing called life, and we take a look at some of the things that are going on here, and the world of collegiate athletics that we've been talking about here today. And there's a lot of great things we're going to have coming up. I'm very excited about a lot of wonderful stories that we're going to be able to tell and different things that are going to be going on. Realignment, like I said, has continued to be ever so interesting and put us in a situation where life has been really unique and, is going to make for a very, very interesting place when I have the opportunity to be down in the ACC about a week from now. And so I'm definitely looking forward to that, looking forward to seeing what we got going on there, and if any decision is going to be made at that time. So it'll be interesting to see that for sure, but I'm definitely looking forward to the opportunity to get out there and get to really get a feel and get a pulse for it even more so. So thank you to all of you that support the show and will be supporting me down there. You know that when it comes to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, I will be talking with every single one of the 14 schools that will be down there in the ACC. This is the last year of divisions in the ACC. After this year, it's done. So no more divisions inside of the Atlantic Coast Conference after this season, and they're going to head to the 3-5-5 model, which we'll be talking with them about. So no matter what happens, I could tell you that at least it smells good here in the studio. Realignment can get ugly, it can get stinky, right? Some teams can really have not a great deal, but what if every time there was realignment, what if the SEC was like, here, take a candle? You know what I mean? Light a candle. Maybe light a candle to find your way. The ACC's trying to find their way. The Big 12's trying to find their way. And, of course, the Pac-12's trying to stay alive and light their own path. So a WittyWicks candle will help you to do that. Go to wittywicks.com and, of course, go to visit them in Township 5 in Camillus, New York. So definitely go and see them today and let them know that Wake Up Call sent you in their way. So good morning to everybody here this morning on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets that thing called life. I want to get to a bunch of our polls because a lot of our polls came in here and they're going to be finishing up this week. But we have polls on Twitter. Make sure you go to Twitter at CallDT, that's CALLDT, and vote in the polls. Don't miss an opportunity to vote in them, so make sure you do that for us here today. I said, who wins the conference battle, the Big 12 or the Pac-12? You can still vote on this. We have a couple days left. 89.1% of the many people, we've had almost 400 votes on this. The Big 12 was chosen. 89.1% believe the Big 12 will make it over the Pac-12, and 10.9% of you think the Pac-12. So I said, who wins the conference battle, the Big 12 or the Pac-12? 89.1% say the Big 12, and 10.9% say the Pac-12. I'm not surprised with that. I wanted to put it out there just to get some thoughts. I know how I feel, but I want to know how you felt. And, it seems like we are in step with each other there. So some of the other polls that we put up that you can make sure to vote in and not miss out on the opportunity to vote in. We got a bunch of polls on Twitter. So if you're not on Twitter, get on there now. Even if you just follow me for the polls at CallDT, that's CALLDT. Follow me there and make sure you connect with us on Twitter at CallDT. To get to some of the other polls we have here, I said, where would you like to see Syracuse University in all of this college realignment? And 44.2% of you said the Big Ten. 20.9% said stay in the ACC. 20.9% also said go to the American Athletic. So the same amount of you that want them to stay in the ACC want them to go to the American Athletic Conference, which used to be the old Big East, and 14% of you said the Big 12. So you can vote in that. There's 3 days left. Where would you like to see Syracuse University in all of this college football, in all this college realignment, I should say? 44.2% would like to see Syracuse move to the Big 10. 20.9% want them to stay in the ACC. The same 20.9% want them to go to the American, I shouldn't say the same, 20.9% equaling the other votes say that they should go to the American Athletic, and then 14% said the Big 12. So that's what we're looking at right now when it comes down to where you would like to see Syracuse be in the grand scheme of things. So I definitely appreciate you being a part of our polls there. And we have some more polls that I put up here that I want to make sure I get to before the end of today's broadcast. And so we have a few more that are out there. One of those being a crystal ball prediction. Where do you see Notre Dame going? There's 1 day left to vote for this on Twitter at CallDT. That's CALLDT. Where do you think the Notre Dame Fighting Irish football will end up? And ultimately, wherever they go, if they bring football, I imagine they're going to bring all of their sports, so they'd be taking those out of the ACC. 50, if they were to leave the ACC, 58.6% believe that Notre Dame Fighting Irish football will be in the Big 10. 26.3% of you think that they'll stay independent. 14.1% said in the ACC, and 1% said the SEC. So make sure you vote in that poll today on Twitter at CallDT. Where do you see Notre Dame Fighting Irish football going in realignment? 58.6% think the Big Ten. So more than half of you think the Big Ten. 26.3% believe that Notre Dame will stay a football independent. 14.1% said the ACC, and 1% said the SEC. So thank you for voting in that. Crystal ball prediction, where do you see Clemson going? So we talked with Alex Dodd about Clemson and Notre Dame. I think they're the last two major pieces to fall. And so of the biggest pieces, the last two major ones to me are Clemson and Notre Dame. Not that other ones can't make an impact, but I think if Clemson goes to the SEC and Notre Dame goes to the Big Ten or the ACC, I think that's a game over in a big way. Now, where does Clemson end up in realignment? 58.5%. Interesting here. 58.6% think that Notre Dame goes to the Big Ten. 58.5%, almost the same amount, thinks that Clemson goes to the SEC. 22.9% of you think they'll stay in the ACC. 7.6% say the Big Ten, and 11% said the Big 12. So in all of your voting of where does Clemson end up in realignment, 58.5% say SEC, 22.9% say they stay in the ACC. So less than 23% of you think they'll stay in the ACC. 11% say the Big 12, and 7.6% say the Big 10. So thank you for voting in that. Will the ACC, the Atlantic Coast Conference, will they make it through this current stage of realignment? 64.6% believe that they will not. More than half of you believe the ACC will break up. Will the ACC make it through this current realignment? 64.6% of you said no, it will break up. 35.4% believe the ACC will make it through realignment. So interesting there. And I asked you, should the ACC add West Virginia out of the Big 12 and Maryland out of the Big 10? 61.8% of you say yes. 38.2% of you say no. I think the ACC at this point, adding anybody would be a good move, as you can't stand still, especially in today's realignment. I think the worst action by the ACC is inaction. They need to do something. The SEC is already the best, and they've gotten better. And they've gotten better. Texas and Oklahoma, I don't think Oklahoma is going to make it out of the SEC outside of maybe one time a decade alive. But Oklahoma and Texas, their markets, their history, the Longhorn Network, really what started this all, right? Before conferences had networks, the Longhorn was out there doing their thing just for Texas. So, I think that Texas's brand and Oklahoma's brand are huge for the SEC that's already ballooned with brands, and the Big Ten getting two California market teams in USC and UCLA, historic teams, in basketball and in football, USC for football, UCLA for football at times, and obviously for basketball. So there's a lot to be had about what the Big Ten is gaining and getting 16. And, the SEC has stayed true to their region. The Big Ten has not. And these two conferences having 16 are the front runners right now. If the Big 12 wants to catch up, they're going to have to expand. They're going to have to do it quick. There's allegedly 4 to 6 teams they're looking at from the Pac-12. If they were to make a move right now, that would make sense for them to go and grab what they can so that they can at least get to 16. Right now, the Big 12 is under the American and under the Sun Belt and under the ACC, who all have 14 apiece, and the ACC is in step with the American and the Sun Belt as far as membership for football schools. So just to make some notes there on where we are right now when we look at the numbers, right? And obviously Clemson is inside of the ACC, so they have the same as the American and they have the same as the Sun Belt, but Clemson is the darling, right? And Florida State would be the next one, and Miami probably after that. So, a move is going to have to be made, and hopefully something will be made soon to make some sense of all of this. But, this is where we sit at right now. And like I said, I believe the ACC has to make a decision, and they're going to have to make it quick. And I don't know if this working out a deal with the Pac-12 is going to do anything, where the Pac-12 gets to survive as 10 and the ACC survives as 14, because does Clemson really want to go play Oregon? And does Washington want to come play Syracuse in the Dome? You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense. I mean, Stanford and Duke, right? You talk about upper echelon schools, right? Wake Forest is not easy to get into. You have Duke, you have Syracuse, you bring in a Stanford, which, could be an Ivy League school, right? How some people talk about it. Then there's that side of it, but do you really want to have to travel multiple time zones to go play a conference game is going to be a question. I don't know if this like weird Pac-12 ACC alliance, which they already have one, and the Big Ten kind of broke it by taking from the Pac-12, but it's like, hey, we're all friends here until you bite off the head of somebody. Everybody's sitting in the sandbox, and then the Big Ten just like took one of the things in the sandbox. Is just kind of, they're all sitting there having a good time and whatever, and while the Big Ten's putting together a shiv with some of the plastic at the edge of the sandbox, and they stab the Pac-12 right in front of the ACC. So and then the Big Ten's kind of looking at them going, you're next. So nobody's playing nice in that joint alliance sandbox. If you keep that sandbox going with the Pac-12 and the ACC, I don't know how the ACC survives this. I don't want to see any of the conferences die. I don't want to see the Pac-12 die. I don't want the ACC to be the lifeline to the Pac-12, though, because I think eventually that'll backfire on the ACC. So I think the ACC needs to take care of the ACC right now. I think the Pac-12 needs to take care of the Pac-12, and the ACC bonding with the Pac-12 is not the right move. The right move is Notre Dame. If you can't do that, then you need to start taking the Marylands, the West Virginias. You need to start making moves that are going to make sense for you, geographical sense for you, and rivalry sense for you, because the SEC has stayed true to their area. I think the ACC needs to stay true to theirs. But Notre Dame, that is the only way the ACC... There's two ways the ACC stays in the news. Keeping Clemson and gaining Notre Dame. Those are the two ways that they stay in the news. Right now, you're the conference, like the American a few years ago with the Big 12, and then this year. The ACC is the American Athletic right now. They're the conference that everybody's talking about, but not for the right reasons. They're the conference that everybody's looking at going, when do you think somebody's going to take from them? Do you think somebody's going to take from them? Are they safe? Are they okay? There's this cloud that's hanging over the ACC right now that hung over the American Athletic. The ACC needs to show its power, and something needs to happen, and it needs to happen quick. So, and yeah, Greg, saying this floodgates of cross-country play, but it's not good, right? It's good for the Big Ten to get USC and UCLA. It is. But if the Pac-10 stays together, then yeah, USC and UCLA, they're going to stand to make more money. But if they see the Pac-10 survive this thing, you know what I mean? It's just kind of a weird... I feel like USC and UCLA, you make the decision money-wise, right? But is it going to... it was enticing you to make this decision, but if the Pac-10 is able to survive this thing and not have to travel all over God's creation outside of non-conference play, what does that do? Because I think for USC and UCLA it's great, but it's also inconvenient, right? For the Big Ten it's great. For the Big Ten it's only great. But for USC and UCLA it's great and it's inconvenient. And you say, okay, well, they're going to make millions of dollars. So, but this is the thing. If I'm going to make money, I don't want to have to be spending it somewhere else, right? If I'm USC and UCLA, I'm going to make more money, but now I'm going to have to spend more in travel. Now I have to fund all my teams to go across country. It's not really viable to do something like that. I get the move for the Big Ten, and I get what it can do for USC and UCLA, and I get what it means if the Pac-12 was in a danger zone, but if the Pac-10 can survive this thing, and if the Pac-10 can somehow bond with the Mountain West, now that would make sense, right? And I mentioned that before, and I heard somebody else mention it after I had mentioned it. The Mountain West would make sense to bond with the Pac because they're in the same area, and there's some good teams within the Pac, within the Mountain West, right? You have Utah State, and you have Utah, so you have that automatic rivalry to keep Utah at bay, right? You have Boise State, you have San Diego State. You have some really good teams that are within that. And then that entire region of the country, if you go back and watch my conference realignment video with the map that's on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt and on facebook.com/wakeupcalldt, and I'll share it. I'll put it on wakeupcalldt.com's homepage as well, because it's really a unique video unto itself. But the whole West Coast is wide open, and outside of USC and UCLA, nobody's touching that. The American Athletic, the Sun Belt, and the SEC are all within the same region. The Big 12 is within that region and spreading out a little bit. The Big 10 is up in the Midwest and then out in California, and the ACC has stayed really on the coast primarily. So the West Coast is wide open. That frontier, right? That Louisiana Purchase area is wide open when you look out west. And so, that to me would make sense, the Mountain West and the Pac. It doesn't make sense for the ACC. The ACC needs to get Notre Dame. That's where they should put their resources in. Getting Notre Dame and keeping their membership. That's what they need to do. And they need to be clear about that in ACC kickoff. And I really can't wait to hear what ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips wants to say about all of this as we have that coming up next week. So with that being said, I want to thank you for being a part of the show, as we've already started off this week very event filled, Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. YouTube.com, Facebook.com, and MixLR.com. All /WakeUpCallDT is how you can tune in. You can all, and that's worldwide. You can also go to WakeUpCallDT.com and Facebook.com /LiveNowDT. Of course, you can search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on Stitcher, Spotify, MixLR, YouTube, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Podbean, and more, including Amazon Music and Audible. All you have to do is search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, or one word, Wake Up Call DT, and you'll find us there. You can also ask Alexa and your Google devices to play the latest episode of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, and they'll do that for you as well. Thank you to our Central and Upstate New York partners and beyond: Cafe Cubal, Carvel DeWitt, the Wildcat Sports Pub, PB&J's Lunchbox, Canine Camp Dog Daycare, Avicoli's, Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, Canine Campground Dog Boarding, as well as Pizza Man, Honda City of Liverpool, Chick-fil-A Cicero, and Chick-fil-A Clay, Witty Wicks, Mother's Cupboard, and Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora is the proud multimedia marketing partner of your Lemoyne College Dolphins. It is fins up all day, day with the Dolphins. You will find them every single month on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. You know that Dolphin time is typically Wednesdays. We have a few weeks off here, but Wednesdays at 9 a.m. Eastern Time is Dolphin time, and you'll find the Dolphins here with us on Wednesdays at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, every first and third Wednesday with AD and DT, featuring Athletics Director Bob Beretta and myself, Dan Tortora. Every second and fourth Wednesday, we have the Dolphin Dive, which is featuring student athletes, coaches, as well as administration, alumni, and future Dolphins. You can check out the archive of all of our fantastic conversations, and there's not a single one of them you should miss. So make sure you go to the Lemoyne tab of wakeupcalldt.com and bookmark it, as we do update that page. And of course, you can also go to youtube.com /wakeupcalldt, click subscribe, and you'll catch us on YouTube with all of our Lemoyne content. In the meantime, go to LeMoyneDolphins.com for more information. Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora is also the proud exclusive multimedia marketing partner with the Marywood University Pacers. It is Pacer Pride every single week on Wake Up Call. Our Pacer Pride is going to come to you early this week on Wednesday, as we'll be on site on location at Marywood University doing the show live. So we can't wait to see you at Marywood this Wednesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Typically, our Pacer Pride is every Friday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time, and then we do our bonus coverage like we'll be doing this week. So come out and hang out with the Pacers. You can find us on youtube.com /wakeupcalldt. Click subscribe. And of course, you can go to the Marywood tab with our upgrading library that upgrades throughout the year with our Marywood content with student athletes, administration, and coaches. So make sure you're watching Pacer Pride this Wednesday at 9 a.m. as I'll be sitting down with Executive Director of Athletics, Pat Murphy, for a year in review of athletics and how the programs did and what they're looking forward to, as well as Pat Murphy as an athletics director giving me his thoughts on realignment, name, image, and likeness, and the transfer portal in the grand scheme of things in collegiate athletics, because he has spent many, many years before coming to Marywood at the Division I level and in different places. So we'll be talking with Pat Murphy on Marywood as well as the larger picture of collegiate athletics this Wednesday. Make sure you check that out live, and of course all of our Pacer Pride content on the Marywood tab on wakeupcalldt.com, and of course by subscribing to youtube.com/wakeupcalldt for more information on your Pacers. Go to MarywoodPacers.com. The Bryan and Stratton College Bobcats of Syracuse are also exclusive multimedia marketing partners with Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Our Bobcat Buzz comes to you every single month, featuring student athletes, coaches, and administration of the Bobcats. We have done multiple exclusives and have only worked with them for a few months, so we've been able to give you the exclusive with Clay Gagan Sherman, Tay Baker, Sean Peak, as well as Dan Frisina. And we have had so much fun with that. We brought Alex Grigorita out into the community to Cafe Kubal. We brought Dan Frisina when he was at Bryan and Stratton out to PB&J's Lunchbox. And we have brought Clay Gagan Sherman out to Mother's Cupboard. We've also just done a Bobcat takeover at Bryan and Stratton College of Syracuse on campus on James Street. So make sure that you tune in this month for what our Bobcat Buzz is going to be next. And we always look forward to talking with student athletes, administration, and coaches of Bryan and Stratton College of Syracuse. Get more information by going, well, you can check them out at the BSC SYR tab on wakeupcalldt.com. For our growing library, you can subscribe to youtube.com/wakeupcalldt in order to get our content from Bryan and Stratton. And, of course, for more information on your Bobcats, go to syracuse.bscbobcats.com. With that being said, here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets that thing called life, I want to thank you for being a part of the show today, and also implore you to go to Facebook at Wake Up Call DT, the Twitter at Call DT, and Instagram at Wake Up Call _DT, and check us out there 24/7. Thank you to my guests inside of Ma and Pa's Popcorn.com's What's Poppin'. Order from Ma and Pa's Popcorn.com from anywhere in the country, and you can go to Ma and Pa's on 201 Old 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. Thanks to Alex Dodd, former Clemson reporter and currently writing for the Rapid City Journal in Rapid City, South Dakota. And a big time thanks to 2025 Syracuse Offeree. That's wide receiver Jayden Sellers, younger brother of Lanorris Sellers, who has committed to Syracuse as an incoming 2023 quarterback, both coming from South Florence High School in Florence, South Carolina. So, with that being said, decking out the studios, 315 Home Sweet Home, and our Cuse pillows, as well as our fantastic candles that are always lit here in the studio to keep it smelling so sweetly, keep my allergies at bay. You can also go out and get their citronella candles right now, which I'm going to have to do because I want to sit outside on my patio and I want to enjoy myself some of that beautiful sky that I get to see. So make sure you head off to Witty Wicks today. Let them know that Wake Up Call sent you, and we appreciate you as always for helping out local. Cafe Kubal is all about the local, 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, as well as 401 South Salina Street, all in Syracuse, New York, and of course on the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road at Sweetheart Corners. You can check them out there in North Syracuse, and you can also find them on 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, New York. For now, from the Cafe Kubal Studios, I'm Dan Tortora. This is Wake Up Call, and as always, God bless.